Okay, and at this time, will be accepting public comment. As such, I would ask anyone who has comment to make to please raise their hand and be recognized, especially difficult to do on Zoom, easier here in the room. And also, just so we all understand that most of the time the board does not respond to public comment. However, we often reach out to what you've said later on a different day. So, okay, Sarah, you have your hand up first.
Thank you. Can you all hear me?
Yeah.
Excellent. My name is Sarah McGuire. I am here because my family has experienced a series of serious failures by this district. Failures to protect students from harm, failures to notify parents when safety, even including physical harm incidents occur, failures to respond appropriately when concerns are raised, and failures by central administration to treat those concerns with even basic professionalism. Taken together, these are not isolated mistakes. They form a troubling pattern that jeopardizes student safety, violates parental rights, and reflects a breakdown of the district's duty of care. 2 weeks ago, an incident occurred in which one of our daughters was physically grabbed and pushed by an unknown male student who was also hurling profanity and racial insults. Despite the fact that my child and several other children reported the incident at the beginning of the school day, we were never notified of the incident by a school official. We were notified by another parent who had been in touch with the school about it. This is the second time that one of our children has been physically assaulted in a Mountain View school without any notification to us whatsoever. The first time, our child came home with a large bruise on her spine after being kicked in the back. The only thing we were told about this incident upon pickup from school by the school staff was that our daughter had big feelings that day, and that's a direct quote. We have since learned that there is no mandatory policy requiring administrators to notify parents when their child is physically harmed. Notification is apparently discretionary, left to the will and convenience of whoever is in charge that day. We were told that the principal simply did not have time to notify us. And yet, that same incident involving my child was discussed in an email with another parent that very day. That discrepancy is unprofessional, clearly, raises serious concerns about selective communication, and suggests inconsistent application of FERPA standards. I also need to address the sexual harassment in the Woodstock High School and Middle School building that has been handled inappropriately and dangerously. The district's own investigation substantiated that sexual harassment against female students occurred. So they substantiated their investigation, then took no meaningful corrective action. The offending student returned to school within days. The girls he targeted repeatedly were not informed that he would be returning, and he now sits in the same classroom as the students he victimized. We were told that an adult is assigned to walk the halls with him, yet this is inconsistently implemented and does nothing to protect the girls in the classrooms where he sits directly next to his victims. The response is inadequate, unsafe, and inconsistent with what is required to maintain a non-discriminatory learning environment under Title IX. Inevitably, subsequent to the school, I'm sorry?
Excuse me, Sarah, we limit public comment to 3 minutes. That's part of the statute, and actually 2 minutes, but I gave you 3 minutes.
I was told that if the time was limited, that would be, I would know that at the start of the meeting because it was based on the meeting's agenda. That's what I have that in an email from somebody that I was corresponding with regarding making a public comment here tonight.
Well, how much more time do you think you need?
I'm using a version of this that is not based on 2 minutes. It's probably 2 more minutes. My hope would be that the school board would like to hear the rest of what I have to say.
I'm glad to hear what you have to say, and you're also welcome to send it to us.
Okay, great. I've already sent it to the Vermont Agency on Education, just so everyone is aware, and including documented emails and timelines
Okay,
with all of this information.
I'll put 2 more minutes on clock here.
Multiple girls in the Union Middle School have reported that they do not feel believed by the administration. They described being minimized, dismissed, and questioned as though they provoked the misconduct. The principal referred to sexually threatening text messages as jokes. A statement that trivializes serious and criminal behavior and signals that harassment will not be taken seriously. Girls were asked, "What did you do to provoke these incidents? What did you do to provoke this behavior?" This is inappropriate, discriminatory, harmful, completely inconsistent with Title IX, and inconsistent with best practices, and creates what can reasonably be described as a hostile and unsafe learning environment. Our attempts to raise concerns with the central administration were met with utter disrespect that actually exemplifies the underlying cultural issues within this district. When we called the central office to ask about what action was being taken to prevent further harm against our child, the administrative assistant referred to our daughter's assault and the use of a racial slur as, quote, "this shit," using vulgar and dismissive language when she believed that she was on mute. She thought she put us on hold and said, "Oh, this shit." The superintendent then stated to us in person twice that our concerns about school culture and our daughter's safety were, quote, "not legitimate." I'll repeat it since she did. Not legitimate. Concerns about a culture that allows harassment, makes girls feel disbelieved and brushed aside, and allows literal physical violence with no consequence are not legitimate. This is not only unprofessional, it reflects institutional disregard for student safety, parent communication, and compliance with state and federal law. The district has been sued but previously for similar failures. The pattern is undeniable. Continuing to ignore it is not only a leadership failure, it is a reckless and from a legal and risk management perspective. And it's really difficult to understand why the administration and the board continue to tolerate a school environment where violence, sexual harassment, and racial slurs are pervasive and becoming the norm in Woodstock. My family moved to this region expecting professional, caring, and community-minded leadership in our schools. And instead, our experience has shown the opposite. Longevity is not leadership. Having 40 years in education, as we were told on Monday, does not excuse dismissiveness, disrespect, or neglecting basic duties of care.
Thank you, Sarah.
Experience without accountability is not a qualification, it is a warning sign.
Sarah, I'm sorry, the time is up. I thank you for your comments, and I would appreciate you sending that to me. And I can tell you that we will be having a discussion about this, but we will not be having it in an open session meeting.
I don't know to whom I'm supposed to send it. It is very difficult to find contact information for the board of directors on the website. I was reaching out to my local Reading representatives.
Board, if you go to the board tab, you
Yes,
will
I
find
did.
underneath that tab, it lists all of our names and our emails.
So to whom should I send it?
By me, Carolyn Bristow.
Okay.
Is there any other public comment? All right, hearing none, we will move into the reports. The first one from the superintendent.
I recognized in my report the two primary events that happened in November. One was the Student Leadership Conference on social justice. We were lucky enough to have Representative attend the meeting. Both we had the Senator Joe Major was there, as well as Representative Becca Ballant. It was an incredible day and a great opportunity. And just for board members to know that the event was totally organized by students, begins in the spring. They organize the grant money, the event, and facilitate the entire day. Very exciting. And then on Tuesday, a week ago, again, just reviewing all the work that individual teachers and administrators put into place, as well as students, and presenting to the Senate Education Committee, which I believe was a very successful event.
Thank you, Sherry. Any directors who wish to give a report tonight?
I do not believe so.
All right, thank you. We have a written report from Lila in the packet, the board book, so
She will be coming later. She has a rehearsal.
yes. We'll invite her to do that now. All right, thank you. All right, time schedule appointments. We have the Vermont Public High School choice. Discussion on that is, are you going through that, Sherry, or is?
Oh, you want me to?
Yeah, I think it's probably better. You can explain.
Right, so annually, we set the number of students that we allow to come in through choice. Our current limit, based on conversation last year, was 15. We have 14 enrolled incoming. We have one student graduating, so we have one available slot for next year. So the board needs to discuss whether they wish to continue, remembering that we do not receive ADM for those students. That stays in their town of residence. But the board has chosen to, last year, to have 15. So that would be the conversation for tonight. So if someone wants to make a motion about whether.
Yeah, that would be great. Somebody can move the question, not move the question, but make an amendment, a motion to approve 15, and from there we can discuss.
I'll make the motion to keep it the same at 15 so we can open up discussion. I'll second.
Are there any comments from the board?
How many?
Yeah. I have one.
Go ahead, Bob.
If it was higher, do we have applicants? Would the number have risen above 15, or did 14 people exactly request to come into the district?
We filled all the slots, and I anticipate that there would be more if we allowed more to enter the district through choice.
Then I would issue a friendly amendment to raise it a few, to say 18.
Raph, do you want to speak to that? He is more. Do you have any better understanding of those numbers, Raph?
Just a quick clarification. So we have 15 slots right now. We have 14 students who are participating, and we have one student who is set to graduate. So next year there would be 2 open slots if we stayed at 15.
Thank you, Raph.
I have a question. I don't know who could answer it, but at what point does it start to harm our budget? Like, at what point would it increase our expenses and it would, bring in revenue?
So I think, and Raph would confirm that the distribution is pretty across all the 6 grades in the middle school and high school. So really, if we had 15 that were all in grade 9, resulting in the hiring of a teacher, then it begins to impact. But at this point in time, I think Raph would agree that because only 1 or 2 are open each year, we really distribute that's where the students are enrolled in what grades. Would you agree, Raph?
It's only for students 9 through 12. So it's distributed across those 4 grades, but it is relatively equally distributed. In some classes there's more, but yeah, they're pretty equally across those groups.
Bob?
Yeah, I think especially in light of what we're trying to do with the new build and the number of students we're trying to house at the new school, my opinion is we should let any and all comers come. I mean, if we end up with a specific budget situation because of the distribution in any given year, that could be addressed with a special motion at any board meeting. But I wouldn't limit this at the get-go to some number which would clearly be exceeded or may likely be exceeded. I say we should raise it. The more kids in our school, the better. even if the ADM doesn't follow them. Thank you.
There's a pipeline of kids who would come here.
I don't know. I mean, we were 10 for many years.
We've noticed that there is more of a cluster from some schools than others. A particular town that's been, many of their students, not many, a number of their students have come in our direction.
But to Bob's point, what would be the harm in increasing it or making it 20 or?
Well, 20 might work, but if you made it 100 and you got 50, and then we had to hire new teachers,
Right.
then we would have higher expenses without
But
the
to just bump it up by 5, which is more than we've had.
You want to make that motion?
Make a motion to increase the number to 20.
I'll second.
Point of order, there already is a motion on the floor for 15, so it would need to be an amendment to that motion, and
Right.
then the motion would be voted on.
Okay. Make an amendment to the motion to make it 20 instead of 15.
And I'll second that.
Thank you.
All in favor of that amendment?
Aye.
Any opposed? And any abstentions? All right, that amendment has posed. Other comments or questions that anyone wants to say before we go to a vote? All right, then, Corinne.
So ADM doesn't follow them, but we do get tuition revenue or no?
No,
Okay. Does it have any other corresponding consequence? Like more of our students can go elsewhere? I mean, this is different from is this different from there's some amount of choice? There's some program whereby some of our students can go elsewhere. Is that true or no?
Yes, that's the next part of the this
Okay.
portion.
Okay. So, but that's separate. That's not related to this number at all.
No,
Thank you.
any other questions, comments?
Well, one comment is they're probably not coming from too far away. I mean, just logistically, that'd be very challenging. And so they're probably likely to be in our district if our districts end up much larger as a result of Act 73. So I think it's great to have them here now.
All right, all those in favor of passing the limit of incoming students to 20, please say aye or raise your hand.
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstain? Okay, thank you. The second part of this is setting the outgoing student limit, which is what Corinne was speaking to, how many students may be limited from transferring out. And what we have here says school boards may limit the number of students allowed to transfer to 5% of resident enrolled students or 10 students, whichever is lower. Schools are also allowed to set higher limits so that more students may transfer. So our limit is none, and currently we have enrolled 5 students outside of our school district.
Mhm.
Do we want to make a change to that?
And we limit it to none because we know there's probably limits set by other schools in terms of how many they can accept.
Mhm. And the board believed if anyone wants to leave the district, they should be allowed to. That was previous discussion.
But in this case, we keep the ADM, correct?
Correct.
And we are not paying tuition. It's not that money goes out.
Correct.
No.
Okay.
Any other questions before we vote? Comments?
I'll make a motion to keep the outgoing limit at 0. Oh, thank you.
All those in favor, please say aye I'll say aye. Raise your Zoom hand.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right, thank you. That motion passes.
Calendar.
The calendar is next.
The annual event. So this is an interesting calendar because Labor Day is very late next year, September 7th. Per our CBA with a side letter, we are not able to open any earlier than 3 days prior to that weekend. So the first day of school will then be September 2nd with professional development and other events that are typically happening prior to that. We have worked as a state to identify a statewide February vacation and a statewide April vacation. This calendar is in line with that work we've been doing as a full state. Superintendents can work together on topics. I know that's surprising. And so we've accomplished that. Winter break will not be 2 full weeks next year because the Christian holiday is on the 24th. One other addition is that we felt it was important to identify other religious holidays. And so you will notice on the calendar that, for example, September 11th, the 21st, October 12th, not October 12th. Let's see, March 2nd, March 16th, there will be no evening events on those other religious holidays. So, and trying to be a more inclusive calendar, this is our attempt to ensure that just as we don't have a Christmas Eve or a Christmas Day practices or events, the same would be true on Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, and other holidays of other faiths. And still, graduation then would be on June 11th. The last day of school would be the 18th if we have 5 full snow days. If not, we come back from there. And this calendar is in line with all the other Southeast region superintendents. Everybody has different calendars and numbers of days in service, but the primary dates, except for the first day of school, I think we're all trying in the area, having either September 31st or September 2nd as the first day of school training because of working with the tech centers, as well as our teachers live in districts other than ours.
Any questions for Sherry on the calendar? All right, in that case, then I'll call for the vote. All in favor of approving this calendar, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right, and I know that I just want to make a note that I know that Sherry has begun a conversation with the WCEA around extending maybe up to 5 more days of attendance. That won't go in this, but negotiations start again next year.
Yeah, we have the smallest number of school days possible, and it makes it very challenging to achieve some of the literacy and math goals we have. It would really help us to have, but I would like to build that up and have that conversation in negotiations next year, and with the goal of eventually 180 days.
All right, we have 4 resignations to accept, starting with Chris Lanzalato.
So Chris was our new assistant principal, had brought great ideas, lots of experience to the middle school, high school. Chris has had some health issues this fall that were unexpected, and with great regret, he has had to resign his position. I just want to thank him, even in his short time working in the middle school and high school and on the leadership team, outstanding educator. He is going to be significantly missed. And the leadership team at the high school and middle school are working very hard to meet the expectations of the assistant principal position as well as the other responsibilities they have day to day. So it's with great regret that I present Chris's resignation.
All in favor of accepting the resignation, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Thank you. Richard Mosenthal.
So Richard was a brand new teacher to us, came with many years of experience, half-time French teacher. At this point in time, he has asked to resign. This is a challenging position, half-time middle school French, and he has decided to move on.
All those in favor of accepting his resignation, please say aye.
Aye.
Okay.
Any opposed? Any abstain? Okay, thank you. The third person is Peggy Willis, longtime special educator.
So Peggy Boylan.
Boylan.
So Peggy Boylan, they're not on this agenda, but their letter of resignation and retirement came in prior to the development of the agenda. So Peggy was hired at least 15 years ago by me, started as a paraeducator at Woodstock Elementary School, has been a special educator for all those years at the high school, working with students with learning disabilities, attention issues, providing significant support, strong relationships. She's also been very involved with student council and other student activities. Peggy and all our kids went through Woodstock, graduated here, a great member of our community, and will be very missed.
All right, so all those in favor of approving this resignation, please say aye.
Aye.
Okay.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Thank you. And Stephen Stuntz has also decided to retire.
Yes, Steve and I recruited many years ago from the Wilder School to take my position, which I was really hard to find someone who has the depth of experience Stephen brought to the district, has worked as an integration facilitator, special ed coordinator, is currently the MTSS coordinator at the middle school and high school, musician, gifted musician, worked with the Yo Theater group, leading the orchestra many times. Stephen, again, incredibly devoted to students with special education, social studies teacher, so has had many hats at the middle school and high school. And again, he will be missed, and is currently the union president. So he's been great to work with and collaborate with, and I will miss both of them.
All those in favor of accepting this resignation? Say aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right, well, on the other side of Stephen Stuntz, he's a musician, so he's got a little group called the Teacher and the Preacher.
Yes.
Isn't they quite good? Fun to
Yeah.
listen
Oh,
to.
absolutely.
All right, at this time, Matt Stout and perhaps other members of the Finance Committee will be presenting a budget workshop for us.
All right, I'm gonna try to share my screen. See if I can do that. Sorry, Chair, I might have to do it.
Oh, I haven't got it queued up.
It's attached to the email I sent. Let me try again.
Okay, because I would have to unplug. Jen, do you have your laptop? Do you have the presentation? Okay, that would be, and if you sign on to this meeting, do you have the link? Okay, then I can make you a co-presenter. I just can't get into my email without unplugging everything.
Yeah, I'm hitting the share button and it's just not happening.
That's
So,
okay.
Just 1 second.
all right.
There we go. Thank you.
All right, sorry about that.
There's music and everything.
So I'll just remind the board members of where we are in the process. We shared the first draft of the budget at the last meeting, the full board meeting in November. We continued to work on it in the Finance Committee 2 weeks ago. And then today, this afternoon, at like 3 p.m., after I had already finished this entire deck, the annual December 1st letter came out from the governor, and that provided some key inputs. So that's not all incorporated into this yet, but you're going to be able to take a look at the budget request for fiscal 27. And then I believe Jen and Jim have some thoughts about the December 1st letter that came out. So we will budget some time for that. If you can go to the next slide.
It's not me.
Oh, it must be Jim. Jim's presenting.
Okay, well, it's working. So we're gonna, just because the getting to the equalized tax rate is somewhat complicated, we're gonna go through it again. Then we'll talk about how the yield bill that was passed will impact us in terms of the threshold. Then we'll talk about the actual budget priorities and drivers, and I'll give us a summary view of the fiscal 27 proposed budget. And then we'll hit the equalized tax rate projections and finish with the bond language for the capital projects that we've discussed. So you can flip ahead again. All right, so for those not familiar, about 67% of the total education fund comes from property taxes. That's split between the non-homestead and the homestead. Currently, non-homestead contributes more, but I know that there's some interest in having that proportion even rise higher. The rest comes from things like sales and use, state lottery, and vehicle purchase and use. Total fund is $2 billion. You can advance the slide.
And just a quick question on the non-homestead portion. That data is based on a mix of business, rental, and second home. So that's not,
Yes.
so that's a little,
Good point. Yep, that's not just second home.
that's business.
That's also businesses, any commercial, anything that's not.
That could be a parking.
All right, you can go to the next slide. So how we start with the expenditures, what we're going to spend to operate the school district. Then we subtract out any local revenues to get to education spending. This is where it's easy, folks. It only gets harder. Then we take our education spending and we divide it by our long-term weighted average daily membership, which we did not have as of last November. If you just mute your speaker. Okay, that gets us our per pupil spend. And then we calculate that to the excess spending threshold. And that is calculated based off of the state's formula, which I'm going to get into here in a minute. You can advance this. Once we have per pupil spend, we divide by adjusted property yield to get equalized tax rate. And then one more slide. We divide that by the town common level of appraisal to get the actual town tax rates. So tonight's focus is really on the expenditures, what we need to spend to operate the school district. But we will get into where we think we might end up on excess threshold. You can advance from here. So last year they did reintroduce excess spending, and it applied to our fiscal 26 budget. And we were in a pretty big hole. I think it started off as high as $3.5 million. And we came up with some significant cuts. We also were able to refinance our bank loans into bonds to significantly reduce the amount in threshold. So those are savings that will carry through. And this year, fiscal 27 will be subject to that same excess spending threshold. And what's interesting is it takes average statewide per pupil spending increases by 118%, and then by the New England Inflation Index, which as of this morning had not been published. Has that changed in the last 5 hours? No. Okay, so that's still not available. So we have a guess at what we think that might be, but we don't have the exact number. But what is interesting about this calculation is that from last year to this year, we're predicting it's only going to increase about 2.5%. So for those of us who live in the real world, where we see inflation in excess of 3%, 3 to 5%, this formula only allows budgets to increase, or per pupil spending to only increase by 2.5%. All right, you can go to the next slide. The previous versions allowed us to pull out the repayments of bonds if those bonds had been approved prior to July 1. But they've done away with that going forward for any new bonds. So if we were to issue a new bond for a school or for capital improvements, if we had to do so, which we're going to talk about later, those do count against our spending, and they put us in the threshold. So that's everyone who's been active on the board knows that we're lobbying the legislature to overturn that element of it, so that we can repay bonds and not have it count against excess spending. Can you go to the next slide? All right, so we're going to get into some of the budget drivers. One thing to know is that in 2025, we had surplus from the audit, and we applied that to the 26 revenue. But we do not have a situation similar to that this year. So it's going to make it harder to limit our increase because we don't have a surplus to apply to the fiscal 27 revenue. And we've also had fewer tuition students, so we're going to see a reduction in revenue from that aspect as well. And overall, while our population has remained stable, we're actually expecting the calculations to be putting us at a slightly lower LTW ADM. Property yield, we did get that today, but I didn't get it incorporated into here because it came in after 3 p.m. Health insurance is another big driver. It always is. It's an increase of 7.4%. And then, of course, we factor in our negotiated contracts through the collective bargaining agreements. Those are for staff and for teachers. And we've already talked about the introduction of penalty phase. So you can go to the next slide. So this is a little bit deeper dive into some of those drivers of the budget. Where we are today, we're with the increases in health insurance of $358,000, with the increases to the wages under the collective bargaining agreements, and with tariffs and impacts of inflation, we're seeing 16% on procurement increase, and the loss of tuition revenue. We're estimating today that we're going to be just shy of $3 million in excess spending. And what we've tried to do as a committee, finance committee, and working with the administration and the whole board, is we've tried to maintain our current offerings. So we've tried to keep in place the extracurriculars, the AP, the arts, things that were on the chopping block last year, and that, we were able to make certain reductions, but we're not able to go any further without support of the public. So we've also have frozen all new hiring. So there are going to be no new hires next year for any new programs. And we've tried to keep our increases and reductions sustainable, meeting all board approved funding priorities and Vermont educational quality standards. All right, so the last bullet I can't read on my slide, but
I think that's Act 73 something.
yeah, in complying with Act 73, which we have. So the next slide, you can go to the next one. So I've collapsed all of the different categories to the different schools and summarize that here. And overall, I just want to point out that the budget request for expenditures has gone up to 28.8 million compared to last year's 27.6. which is a 4.4% increase. And again, in this environment where we have healthcare going up over 7%, we've had inflation hitting purchases, increasing those by 16%, and we have collective bargaining agreements that have increased cost under contracts between 4 and 6%. I actually think it's pretty impressive that overall we're only asking for an additional 4.37%. You will see as you scroll through this that some schools have gone up, some have gone down. I'll point out that at Reading, we reduced the principal position to a half time. At Prosper Valley, we'll have a teacher who will be moving out and following a big class. Will be moving from Prosper Valley to the elementary school. I'm sorry, to the middle school. So that is kind of a shifting of cost. And I would encourage anyone who hasn't attended finance committee meetings to go ahead and look at the November board agenda or board minutes, and you'll see a link that you can follow in there to the entire fiscal 2027 financial folder, and you can get every single line item in great detail that sort of builds this up and compares it to the last 3 years. So if you as board members have questions about what's behind these numbers, I highly encourage you to look at that and come to finance committee meetings or send questions to me or to Jen. You can advance this slide. So one of the things I wanted to make clear is that all of the budget cuts that we made for fiscal 26, those carry through and they allow us to keep our costs down. And so just as a reminder, we had 1.5 positions removed from Barnard last year. We had 2 full-time positions removed from Killington. I mentioned the principal position went to a half-time. There was no way to reduce staff at Prosper Valley, but like at all other campuses, we reduced costs for textbooks, supplies, and periodicals. At Woodstock Elementary, we reduced staff by 1.5. We reduced a librarian, a para, and we reduced a full-time position at the central office, as well as we took $100,000 out of buildings and grounds. So for everyone who was on the board last year, you remember this was a pretty tough process. There were a lot of different proposals made, but this is what we came up with. And these cost savings have carried forward into fiscal 26. You can advance this slide. So when we start to think about how these tax rates could impact our communities, I didn't have equalized pupils or LTW ADM. So I couldn't calculate per pupil spend. We didn't have the property yield until this afternoon. So what will happen in terms of passing our budget? We do have a December 15th meeting, and the only purpose of that meeting is to pass a budget. We could, in theory, pass a motion to pass this expenditure budget tonight, but I don't recommend that we do that. I think we want to see there's more work to be done on the revenues. And of course, there's more work to understand where we are on per pupil spending, where we are on the excess spending, and how it will impact our individual towns once we have an equalized tax rate and CLA. I'm going to finish my slides. I'm going to go to questions, and then I'm going to have Jim and Jen talk about the December 1 letter that came out. So when we as a committee thought about how to shape the budget this year, we wanted to think about our guiding documents. I won't read through all of them, but really, as you all know, we've had a real strong focus on improving literacy in math. We've had very good results in those areas while keeping, I think the opportunities very high at the level of high achievers. So I think that we have a good mix of priorities, and we were achieving those in this budget. You can go to the next slide. I think this could be it. No, next steps is the next slide. No. So I want to talk a little bit about the 3. Yeah, you can advance it, Jim. So this is draft language. There are 3 bonds that we could take to voters in March. And we've started drafting language. We haven't put in numbers yet. We want to get good cost estimates and build in some contingency. But the first is one that we've all talked about, and that's addressing the failed sewer line that exits from the bathrooms in the cafeteria in the middle school section of our campus. We have some cost estimates that with contingency could probably get this done under 500,000, but that number is not firm yet. Similarly, we've got some cost estimates for the next one, and that is to replace the 1958 boiler that is no longer working. And the proposal is to replace that with two much smaller, high efficient boilers that I believe will burn propane. Is that correct? That's correct. So we have a very, very old boiler that has failed that uses, that one still uses oil? It still uses oil. And it's lasted 65 years, miraculously, 67 years. But the plan is to put in two high efficiency propane boilers. And I believe that one as well, with contingency, is also under 500,000. We're working on firming up those numbers. The last article that we could go for is a project that's been long in the waiting on the buildings and grounds list to improve or to replace much older windows and doors at Killington Elementary School. And this one is a little bit different from the others in that we've added a clause at the end that we would only proceed with this bond if the Vermont legislature enacts legislation to separate capital construction debt from per pupil spending. The other two have to get done. We need a working sewer and we need a working boilers. And the last one, should get done. But if it's going to put us further into excess spending, then we could wait on that one. All right, my last slide, I think, is next.
Can I ask a question about that?
Yeah.
On the first two, can you back one slide? Thanks, Jim. Because they're coupled, per pupil spending and capital projects, what's the effect? Is it 2x that we're paying on those costs? Is it 1.5? Like, just what's the, like,
Yeah,
let's see.
let's just say, I'm gonna make it as simple as possible. If we were to finance it over 5 years, I think Jim was talking about maybe a 3-year financing. Well, let's just say it's 5 years and make it easy. We have to pay back 100,000 a year on that first one. That extra 100,000 we have to pay back would just go into our district expenditures. And if we know, like, if next year's fiscal, and we start paying that back in fiscal 28 and we're back and we're in excess spending again, then you could just think of that extra 100,000 going into excess spending, which means we pay taxes. Essentially, we have to collect 200,000 from taxpayers, but we only get 100,000 back from the state. That's the downside of being excess spending.
So basically, because of that calculation, it's 2x.
It's 2x because of that calculation. Now, you could decide to take if in that example, you could take 100,000 elsewhere out of your budget, so you can't really blame like just the repayment.
Sure.
It's just a matter of like, if we know we're going to be in excess spending, then and then on top of that, we have to put the repayment of bonds into our per pupil calculation. Then it's like paying for it twice. But right now, I don't know how anyone could argue that we can't have a working sewer from the cafeteria in the bathroom. So we think we need to do this. We need to firm up these numbers, and we don't need to vote on this tonight. But I think the plans, Bob, let me hold questions for 1 second, and then because I only have one more slide, and then I'll open it up to discussion and questions. So just one more slide, Bob, and then I'll wrap up. So next steps would be Finance Committee meeting if needed, December 8th. December 15th, we have a special board meeting just for purposes of voting on our proposed budget. If it does not pass, then we can give the administration direction on what should be revised and changed, and we can attempt to pass the budget again on January 5th at our next full board meeting. That is about the latest we can go without passing a budget by our board, because it needs to start being put on town warnings so that it can make it onto the March 3rd ballot. So that would be step 4. All right, that is all I have, and I'll turn it over. I saw Bob's hand first, and then I'll go to Lara.
Yeah, a question about the debt. If we go ahead and let's say borrow money for the first 2 items, and then subsequently, like maybe let's say they don't do it this year, next year the state excludes debt service from educational spending. Those loans wouldn't be grandfathered, would they? We could start taking that out of educational spending.
We don't know.
We don't know for sure, but it seems logical that those should come out of per pupil spending.
I think the big push is to have it decoupled. I heard from Charlie today, Kimball, lots of pressure to decouple capital spend from per pupil spend. So, and even when Senator Bongartz was here, he was really in line with that same thinking. So I'm optimistic, which often I'm not with Montpelier, that that's a piece of legislation. It's a win-win for everyone. And it really doesn't bring any new costs to the state.
Well, say they pass something on the end of session in May to decouple, we pass a bond in March. Do we pay excess in year 1, or do we not? I mean,
So I think that would be important for Charlie to know, is to make sure. Yeah, so I think that, sharing that with Charlie, him and Allison Clarkson are creating that legislation.
the numbers of what the bond numbers are once we have them with them.
Yeah, if they write legislation, we want them to write it in such a way that it captures it retroactive to the votes that were taken this year.
Mhm. Right, so that would be
Perfect.
feedback for them to have.
Thank you.
Lara?
For those first 2 upgrades to the high school, are those compatible with any potential new build if we do pass that? Or are we gonna just buy a boiler for a year or 2 and then have to buy a whole new boiler for the next?
We'll be able to utilize those 2 gas boilers in any other of our schools. We have the same type and the same size in 3 out of the 4 that we have gas. So we'll be able to utilize those. Another point I want to make quickly is I do think we can get both of those projects total under 500,000.
Okay,
So we're not looking at.
Yeah, so costs have come down from where we initially were.
And I think that's important, Lara, that even if the bond for a new build passes in March, we would not be able to move students into a new facility until September 29.
29.
So we really need, the one part of the middle school, high school we can't work around is the cafeteria. And those sewage lines are what is causing the issues. I mean, we can close up other parts of the middle school and high school, but we cannot operate that building without a cafeteria. Got to feed the kids.
Yeah, and I think West is in need of a upgraded boiler. So if we do build a school and we pull out one of those brand new high efficient propane boilers, it has a place to go right away.
James.
Also, it's important to know that these new bonds will replace bonds that we will have already paid off. So it basically just keeps flattening the way it is.
Okay.
When the bonds be paid off, we're paying them?
Yeah, we have bonds that will be paid off by 28.
I'm just wondering what they.
They are from JCI Capital Improvement. I believe is what it is.
Yeah, and when we changed the way we distribute the heat in the high school, and when we paid for some of the designs for the new building, so we issued bonds to get that work done. But those ones were excluded from per pupil, so these ones might not be. But you're right, we're not really adding to spending because it's just replacing
debt for debt.
Debt for debt. So if there aren't other questions, I would like to hear what the administration thought of the December 1st letter, because I read it quickly, but I'm not ready to discuss it.
I actually have it all broken down. I'll share it. And we have our current, threshold.
Are you signed on?
Yeah.
Okay, hang on.
That was a lot of work.
Yes. Trying to find Jen. So you've logged into the meeting?
Mhm.
Because I don't see you.
I have it right here, I can check.
Oh, great.
Okay, so you're gonna see that this is, our local expenditure budget as it stands right now, 32 million. We have our local revenue of 5,479,839. This is, the tuition students. We did not increase this at all. This is the same as we received last year. Just obviously the tuition rate has gone up, but we did not change the number of tuition students. And then we also still have FY24 fund balance of 350,000. That brings us to our 5,479,839. That brings us down to our preliminary ed spending of 26. Then our excluded debt, which is 964,977, brings us to our adjusted ed spending of 26 million. Our long-term, our LTW ADM is 1,478.56. So our per pupil spend right now is 18,254. The excess spending threshold this year is 16.31.
But that one is still subject to a small inflation adjustment that's not final, right?
Yeah, the NEP is gone and they have no idea what to do with it.
Oh, they're not
It's gone.
even gonna publish it. Okay.
Correct.
And they can't do anything different than the NEP because that's what's in legislation. So once again, they're scratching their heads what to do.
Right, so right now, this is as it stands and is legitimate, it's not,
Adjusted.
adjusted or anything. So the property yield rate that was on the 12, one letter is 8849. Brings us to our equalized tax rate of 2.0629. Our non-homestead tax rate is 1.7910. So our equalized tax rate is 2.0937. This is a change from our FY26 of 0.0308. So right now, with the budget as it stands, and if it were to pass, our spending excess threshold is 2,843,534.6.
And again, so just, and Jen and Jim done a great job in a very short amount of time. Jim, and I want him to rest. So he's online, but he will now use these numbers to anticipate impact on individual towns. Because again, it's based on the CLA. What I,
We discussed that we probably have that.
right. So within the next week or so, that can be sent out to board members in anticipation of the December 15th meeting. And know that the LTW ADM changes daily. They call it whack-a-mole because there were some, this came out, the day before Thanksgiving, this number was sent out, and within a few hours, there were issues with that calculation. So that may change very little, the 1,470.56. No. I mean, LTW ADM may be varying, but it won't have a huge impact on the overall amount.
So we're assuming
Threshold.
4 to 5 students maybe.
So Corinne has her hand up, but I just want to make sure that I'm reading this correctly. So when we calculated fiscal 27 equalized tax rate of 2.0629,
Mhm.
when you compare that to what we calculated last year, fiscal 26 equalized tax rate of 2.09, we've actually come down. So we are in threshold, but we have reduced our equalized tax rate.
Yeah.
So that is I mean, we should be getting kudos for that. I mean, I hate being in threshold, but we've actually come down from last year.
Yes.
Corinne, did you want to ask a question?
Yes, I just wanted to make sure I was reading that correctly, and I think that that's fantastic to see that. And I just wanted to ask, because the sound is a little garbled, and I don't quite understand the last two lines. If you could explain those two lines again, the potential spend and what that figure is indicating.
That's what we are above the threshold.
That's how much this budget is above the threshold. 20. Okay.
Yeah.
What is the line above that? Is that it's the same number, but it says potential spend up to FY26
Yeah,
tax.
it's just carrying it forward because there's nothing additional that.
Okay. Okay. All right. Thank you.
And for people who want to know how that's calculated, you take our per pupil spend of 18,254, and you subtract what's allowed under excess spending, the 16,331. That difference, you then multiply by our number of students when it's weighted with the ADM, and that will get you to the 2.8 million.
Oh, I see.
So,
And then will you redo the 2.06 one? How the equalized tax rate? Oh, just redo these all, like, explain them again. I know the homestead property, what is the homestead property? Better.
So this, and I call it the shot across the bow letter. So this is from the governor's office based on what they anticipate the school budget's going to be, what they anticipate, the different funding sources that go into the ed fund, how much they think they're going to raise based on all the other different combinations that we saw at the beginning of it. So it's the shot across the bow. And I will be very editorial in saying this is typical that the governor sends out a yield that results on the tax, all your taxes are going up, and the reason is because education is spending too much money. This happens every December 1 that Scott's been in office.
and if you go back through those first 5 slides, we have to take spending divided by property yield. That is just one of those steps to get to equalized tax rate.
Right.
And his letter did say that as a state, on average, you could expect property taxes this year to increase by 12%. So as a state, that would be the average increase in your property tax. But we have, until we compare what our towns paid last year to what we expect them to pay this year when we divide by the CLA, it won't necessarily be that number. Yeah, I mean, we could be better, we could be worse, but I'm just seeing for the first time that our equalized tax rate has gone down from last year. So if the CLAs were exactly the same, people's taxes are not going up. Yeah, they could go down compared to a statewide average of 12%.
Yeah, why did our equalized tax rate go?
From the finance committee. I mean, because of everything we went through, when you start with
Go back and re-listen to what you said.
we
Sorry.
have to take what your expenditures were minus your revenues, get to your actual spending, divide by LPW ADM, get per pupil, I mean, then divide by property yield, then divide by CLA. This is why they're reforming the taxes.
It's really awful.
It's hard to follow.
It's
Thank you, Jen, for pulling that together in the last few hours. Thank you, Jim.
Are there any other questions for the finance committee?
Thanks for all your work, Matt.
Yeah, and Corinne and Anna have done a lot of work, come to every meeting, and I was the lucky one to present it.
Yes, thank you for all of the work that's gone into this. All right, then I think we are going to move to the next time scheduled appointment, which is a rebuild update led by Steph.
Okay, great. I just wanted to again say thanks to Matt and the Finance Committee. What a tremendous amount of work. I've only been on this board since August, and I'm constantly amazed at how much work everybody does. The rebuild working group update. So I have two parts to this update. One is the things that we're doing to make a rebuild more affordable and aligned with Act 73. That's part one. And part two is the efforts that we've been making to educate voters on why we believe this is the best moment to pass a new bond to rebuild the school and get their feedback. So on the first area, one, on making the plan more affordable and aligned with Act 73. Number one, this issue of decoupling per pupil spending and capital expenses. Senator Clarkson and Representative Kimball have told us that they plan to introduce a bill to accomplish this. They will do that in January. Windsor has signed on. Windsor and Wethersfield have signed on to our letter that we sent earlier in September. Colchester is supportive. We're working to get the VEA behind it. And then we briefed the Senate Education Committee a couple of weeks ago, I think of the 18th, and got a lot of verbal support from that body. So I just want to thank Senator Clarkson and Representative Kimball for helping to lead on that. They've been working to get co-sponsors. And I think we're going to work to keep magnifying that, because that's really key to unlocking the opportunity to rebuild. You know, the plan is to have a bond vote that is contingent on that and receiving money from the state and private sources. But having that in motion is really important. So number two, on making the plan more affordable and aligned with Act 73, we've been working with well, first of all, the plan now has evolved to get 30% from state and private funds. So we know that the State Construction Aid Fund was established in Act 73. It's being set up. The Senate Education Committee told us that they intend to put some initial funding into it. We believe that between state and private sources, we could gather up to 30% of the cost for the construction of the debt service to go against and reduce the burden to taxpayers. So that's number two. And we're continuing to take the steps to pursue both of those things. We have one on the state side, it requires the pre-approval and a successful bond vote to provide the local match. And then two, on private fundraising, we have a group of volunteers that are working to resecure the $3.5 million in pledges from 2024 that were secured, and then grow that base of private funding. We have bi-weekly meetings going on the fundraising, and there's a lot of work behind the scenes on this. So number three, in terms of steps to make this more affordable and aligned with Act 73, is making cost reductions on the pre-approved plan. Using approximately $30,000 that were raised in private funds by members of and supporters of the rebuild. We rehired the architect and the third-party estimators to modify and update the plans, looking at further cost reductions, within, of course, the bounds of our pre-approval. I thank Sherry for her work on this, and Joe Rigoli, and we've been meeting with the architect and Megan Landis from the rebuild working group, and others who have weighed in. I think things that are nice to have that we ideally have, we have to look at cutting, like geothermal. That has a $8 million price tag. I think that unfortunately won't be a part of the recommendation we make to the board. We are looking at continuing making all the roofs flat, eliminating the gables. So there was a partial done in 2024, and so hopefully there's going to be some cost reductions there. We're looking at a facade realignment in the front. We're looking at other systems. What other smart systems could be in place? I just emailed the team that there could be $500,000 in a new boiler that we could take off the budget if that bond goes through. But I think we're looking at wherever we can make cuts to go back to the community in that way. You know, regarding the program, and that means the square footage, this building would have approximately the same capacity as the current building, meaning the current building has held up to 700 students in its lifetime. This building would be designed to hold 700 students. There would be an increase in square footage from the current building, but that accounts for the changes that are mandated by the state in terms of largely square footage per classroom. The current square footage per classroom ranges from 500 to 700. The state mandate is 750 per classroom. So, you know, I think you're going to see a building design, which you guys are familiar with because of the pre-approval, around 160,000 square feet, around that approximately to align with the pre-approval. But, you know, essentially, I was talking with the fire department last week about the parallels between this and the rebuild of the fire department. When the fire department was, you know, built 50, 60 years ago, firefighting and insurance and safety were a lot different than they are now. Today, you know, education is a lot different in 2025 than it was in 1958. And, you know, so I think the differences in education and the requirements from the state a lot for the changes in square footage. So number 4, in terms of financing efficiencies, now that Jim is back, if there are anything, you know, it comes back soon, if there's anything we can do with Jim and the bond bank to further stretch out financing, we're investigating that. And then now this leads into the next agenda item, but I'm going to go ahead and mix them up. The 5th thing that I think that we need to do as a board is also advocate for new revenue sources to support schools. And that includes, I would advocate for a tax increase on the second homeowners to offset homestead property taxes. Property tax relief is very important, and there's an affordability crisis, but it should not solely focus on cutting school expenses. Because as you know, we continue to operate in lean environments. And you know, I think that I would like the board, you know, and I think that the good news is, and we were recognized by the Senate Education Committee as being a leader in managing taxpayer money fairly and openly and with accountability and responsibility. You know, they really called out the BOCES effort that's been going on, and that was designated by the Vermont Redistricting Task Force, as the only plan that could actually save money in terms of school education reform. So, you know, I would encourage the board to think about, and I will pass this around, but putting on a ballot item onto the March ballot that asks the question, do you support raising property taxes on second homeowners in order to offset and reduce property tax burden on homestead taxpayers? I think that would, I get the sense based on my conversations, and I've been out in the community a lot, that would pass with flying colors. It's very clear that we do not have the authority to implement that tax. This would be essentially a poll of our constituents that would send a message to Montpelier in the middle of the legislative session that this is something that they can do to support property tax owners in schools in our region and statewide. I've drafted a resolution that we could consider, you know, talking about how homestead property taxes have risen, talking about how there's a broader affordability crisis, talking about the acute housing shortage, and we're estimating that we need 24,000 to 36,000 additional year-round homes. And that lack of housing hurts school districts' ability to recruit and retain teachers and staff, as well as families we serve. And then, you know, talked about how the education reform bill last year reclassified the non-homestead property tax from being an amalgamation of businesses, rental properties, whatever else, what else is in it?
Second homeowners.
Second homeowners to actually, now they created individual categories for those things. So that the legislature has the ability to tax second homeowners more. And then I have cited 3 precedents: Montana, South Carolina, and Rhode Island, which have all increased taxes on second homeowners for these reasons. So I think that's something that it would be important for us to use our bully pulpit with, to get the word out and to raise awareness. That could be a way that we could help further lower the cost for taxpayers for a new rebuild. I'm just going to pause there on that. The last thing before I go into what we've been doing to get it out is the overall goal is to offer voters a lower cost proposal with a higher capacity than they considered in 2024, despite inflation. So basically, translation, vote on something a little bit larger for less money. That's where we're headed. We have hired the architect. The schedule is we're getting updated pricing, draft pricing mid-month. We're going to work to finalize that. We're going to final pricing at the end of the month that will revise and bring to the board for consideration. And that is what would drive being on the ballot. So we're really coming down to the wire here because we had to raise private money to go and get these folks, and because we're taking these cost-cutting measures. But we will have actual numbers towards the end of the month that will be at our January meeting. I'll pause there and then I'll talk about what we're doing to educate voters if there's any questions.
I'll just say that when I spoke to the Senate people who were here, all of them were there. We had this discussion about second homeowners, and I said, well, we support taxing them differently, at least on par with what the real homeowners have to pay. And they all agreed with it. So those, they a mix of Republicans and Democrats both all saying that. And so one fellow from up north said, well, wouldn't your community be against that? I said, absolutely not. Nobody can buy a house here. So I think that across the state, if the momentum can be, raised high enough, I think it would have some traction.
Okay, thank you. Anna?
I'll defer to Bob. He had his hand up first, and then I'll ask my questions.
Yeah, regarding increasing taxes on second homeowners, what would you say to those that question whether it makes sense to charge those that are less likely to use the services of a new school more money than those that are more likely to use the services of a new school?
I think the first thing is I would point to property values are directly tied to the strength and health of secondary schools. And so caring for those schools is critical for those homeowners to maintain the value in their investment. I think also, this is a policy to recognize this moment in time. There's an affordability crisis, and there's a housing crisis, and there's a school construction crisis, and something's got to give, and everybody's got to give a little bit. And I think these people have the ability to pay. I do not think it would deter the buying, and I do not think, and I do think having parity at minimum is certainly fair policy. That is my opinion. And I do think there is great precedent now in Montana, South Carolina, Rhode Island, and other places. So this is not like a new idea. Anna, then Ryan.
Yeah, sorry. Josh is outside and he said the door's locked. He wanted me to let y'all know.
Yes, police sweatshirt on.
Bob, would that answer your question?
Yes, you answered the question. Anna.
Thanks, Bob. I had two, what I think are pretty easy questions. Do we have information on the next rebuild committee meeting or work group meeting? And can you speak to Seth and Carrie came down to the Reading Elementary School a few weeks back, and there was this brilliant point on the modularity of the school and being able to add on should there be an increase in students that some of us expect to happen with a new campus. Seth, can you speak to the financing around that and involving the state?
Yes, well, what the architect has told us generally is that the way to add capacity beyond the current plan would be to retrofit the roof so that you could add a third floor in future years. The design and installation of those materials to give you that expansion option would cost around $2 million. I don't think that's something that we can afford at this moment, nor do we want to plan for. But we could, if the state felt like, because of the way this legislative session goes, that they want to expand our school, that they could fund that design and the final drawings post bond vote.
And the design of the new building is for 700 students. We currently have 445. So the idea that we could add or generate 200 plus more students. So there is quite a bit of capacity. And in the previous plan, if we exceed 700, the question then becomes, do we become a sole high school building and look into a regional middle school? So that was always the thought if we exceeded the number that the design was established for.
Brilliant, thank you. And has the next rebuild work group meeting been scheduled yet?
Well, first of all, the working group has been meeting. We had 4 meetings last week, and these have been in the districts. And these have been like, what we've been doing is we've been going district by district. Like this tomorrow, let's see, we're going to Thompson Center, the Teachers Association, and then we have a house party in Woodstock on Wednesday, plus the Pomfret Select Board. Okay. And then, so we've been getting out and doing that. Today, there was a meeting with the architect. You know, so these are all, the working group is very, very busy. The next working group will come together likely on the 16th, on that Tuesday, before Christmas, once we have further results.
So December 16th, I'm asking for the folks in Reading who have been interested in joining and are waiting with bated breath to know when they can attend the next meeting. I don't know if that changes the date and time.
Yeah, and we would like to, that reminds me, we would like, and that's another point on my note, we would like to appoint Alicia and I'll pull up the name. I'll pull that up at the end of the report. Because we have a new Reading representative, community representative, but I want to take Corinne's question first.
Received. Thanks, Seth, for all your work.
I just wanted to make a minor point to add or emphasize the first part of your response to Bob regarding, you know, second homeowners less likely to be utilizing the services of the schools, that distinction, whether you have kids, have family using the schools or not, cuts across both, you know, first homeowners and second homeowners. So there are plenty of folks who live and work and pay income taxes in Vermont who don't have, you know, kids in the schools as well. And I just think that it sort of gets back to tax policy and the reasons for using property tax as a way to fund schools, but it's not really like a, you know, sort of fee for service kind of tax at all. So I think it's not as much of a sort of excusing argument for second homeowners, or any more of it for them than it is for, you know, some class of first homeowners here in Vermont.
Well, go ahead. I'll just make a comment in support of increasing the tax rate on second homes. So in my business, we're developing power plants all over the country and adjacent to data centers. And it is unbelievable to see what happens to the tax base in those communities when there's massive economic development. The conditions in Vermont do not support economic development of that nature. It is not happening, and it hasn't happened in years. And other than one chip maker up in Burlington, you just don't see it. And so what is our economic development? What drives our economy? It is tourism. People love to be here. It's beautiful. It's protected. And they're building, massive second homes and putting in tens of millions of dollars into that real estate. So that is our tax base. I mean, that's where we can get, some tax revenue from the economic development. That is our economic development. It's just a fact. We don't have the type of companies that are moving into some of the bigger states around the country. So I support it.
So I would like to know, would the board like to make a motion for me to prepare a draft question for the March ballot that we could vote on at the next meeting about advocating for increased second homeowner taxes to offset homestead property taxes?
Would somebody like to make that motion?
So
Second.
All right, are there any other questions about that? All right, then all in favor of preparing a possible referendum or whatever you want to call it on the ballot? A ballot question, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay. Josh is abstaining. Okay, thank you. Then I think you got your question answered. Seth?
thank you. The second part of my report, and I'm sorry, I don't have the beautiful slides that Matt did. I'll steal his template for next time. We've been working to educate voters on why we think this is the right time to do this while we can leverage state and private dollars and before costs rise more. We're on track to have 60 house parties and/or attend community events by the end of January. Over the last 2 weeks, we've done community meetings at South Woodstock Country Store, South Woodstock House Party, Barnard Rebuild Advocates, Pomfret Rebuild Advocates. We had a nice meeting in Reading last Saturday with a community meeting. We had a meeting in Bridgewater, a house party in Bridgewater last week. A couple in Woodstock. This week, I told you about the Townsend Center, South Woodstock, Conference Select Board. Next week, we have the Plymouth community meeting, Killington seniors, church visits. And I'd like to work with the superintendent and the principals to set up info sessions at the high school, middle school, Woodstock Elementary, Barnard, Pomfret, Killington Elementary, and Reading on Saturday mornings in December and January. So that we can reach out to parents and PTOs and continue to educate folks on what's happening. We've received nice letters of support from the Woodstock and Barnard Select Boards. Pomfret Select Board will be considering a letter Wednesday night. We've had informal talks with other select boards, getting this on the map and really working to engage key organizations in each town. In all of these places, our rebuild working group is doing a lot of work, but we could use support from the board members and attending and participating. So please just encourage you, if you're interested, to continue working with us. And thank you for the folks who have done that.
Oh, Shannon, you can take that comment during public comment. We don't usually recognize citizens during board discussions.
I would like to, we have Ann Kolblinski Sanderson, who's a Reading community member. We would like to add and appoint to the rebuild working group as a community member from Reading. If folks would like to make a motion to do that, we'd love to have her. She's energetic and has been super helpful and wants to continue to work with us.
I'll go ahead and make Make the motion to appoint Ann Kobylensky to the Rebuild Working Group.
Is there a second?
And I agree, she's fantastic, and I think she's going to do an amazing job.
Thank you, John. All in favor of appointing Ann, please raise your hand or say aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Great, thank you, everybody. Wasn't there another woman, Alicia, who got, she had reached out to you?
I think we have met with her, yeah.
Oh, okay. Great. All right, thank you, Seth. I know how busy you are. Okay, we have now committee updates. Finance committee update.
No update since we already gave the presentation.
Yeah, that was more than sufficient. Policy committee update.
Yep. So we have 3 policies to discuss. We have 2 for the first reading. 820 is really one about called board meetings, agenda preparation and distribution. It's really just defining when we have meetings, what our agenda is, how we notify people, and guidelines for conducting the meetings. Pretty basic. And so I would like a motion to, unless you have any questions, have a second reading in January. So moved.
Second.
Any questions for Elliot on that policy? Okay, all in favor, please say aye or raise your hand.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay.
Okay, the next one is 822, which is an update of the one we have. It's called on notice of non-discrimination. It's updated from the policy we had passed in 2020, but it now includes a new phrase about immigration status. Basically, that's all. And again, I would like to have a motion to for a second reading in January.
So moved.
Second.
Any questions for Elliot on that policy? All right, all in favor of moving this to a second reading? It's a second, yes. Please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right, thank you.
Okay, and the next one is for adoption, our student activities, clubs, and athletic policy. And as you remember, we've been working on this for, I don't know, over 3 years. And we're at the point where we have trimmed it down and basically taken out all the procedure and left that to the administration. And basically, it's just the policy of what we believe that we should have these things and we value them, but basically the particulars of how we choose it is up to the administration. And so we have gone through several readings of this, and I would like to have a motion to pass it for adoption. So,
Thank you, John.
A second.
Thank you, John. Any questions for Elliot on that policy? All right, all in favor, please say aye. Raise your hand. Any opposed? Corinne? Oh, that was a late raise.
It was just late.
Okay, no problem. Any abstentions? All right, it is approved. Congratulations.
Congratulations. Now I've got work to do, right? That's my turn.
Yeah.
All right, next is the Buildings and Grounds Committee update.
We didn't meet last month, so unless Joe has anything that he wants to chat about real quick, we have no report.
But we're still working on getting final numbers for those bond projects. Been applying pressure. These folks know that we're under a timeline, so hope to have those solid numbers here over the next couple of weeks.
Great. Negotiations, hiring, retention, and committee update.
No update.
I did sign the side letter,
Oh, great.
so we might be done.
Stipends are almost done. We are just really close. really close.
Any other working groups? Nope. All right, can we approve the minutes of the November 3rd meeting? Sure. I need a second. Second. Thank you, thank you. All in favor of approving the minutes, please say aye.
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 I didn't
Aye.
hear who the second was, and actually, I'm thinking the first sounded like John, but sorry.
And Matt.
And
Oh, okay. All right. That's a voice I'm not used to hearing in the motions. Sorry.
Okay, I think all are in favor, yes? Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right, at this point, we do have public comment. We generally have a time limit of 2 minutes per person, and I'm going to recognize, yes, Shannon. Shannon.
Hi, thank you. I just first off wanted to say thank you to Seth for coming out to Reading last week, as well as yourself. And I was just looking on the website, and I appreciate Anna asking about the meeting. Unfortunately, my son has a concert that night of the 16th, so I wouldn't be able to make that meeting. Would it be possible for that working build group to put on the calendar, perhaps the school board calendar, showing where they would be at all of the locations around town? You know, perhaps someone in Killington can't make that particular meeting and they want to go to the one in Barnard, or, you know, whatever it might be. If all of those locations that he's appearing at and all of those activities that they're doing could be posted either on the build committee page specifically or on the school calendar, either or both would be great to see those. So those people who want to make it out to those meetings could have a variety to choose from. Thank you.
Sure, Shannon.
Yeah, Janet could help.
That'd be great.
Yeah, they're a mix of sort of house parties, which are more informal, and then visits with select boards and groups that invite us, such as the senior center, and the faculty and staff have a presentation on Wednesday at their request to us. So we can do as best as we can.
Right. Understanding if it's a private house party kind of event, maybe that wouldn't be posted publicly, but any of the other publicly located events would hopefully be able to be, accessed. Thank you.
Anne was talking about organizing another meeting in Reading, so it might be easier for you, Shannon. So I'll let you know all of the options.
Thank you for that.
Does anybody else have wish to make a public comment? All right, at this time then, we have a time to reflect and implement recommendations for improvement. I think we've all been reflecting a lot.
I guess we have to state at the beginning of public comment that there's a 2-minute time limit.
Yes, definitely. We'll do that. All right, then let's have a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, any opposed? Any abstentions? All right, thank you, everybody.